Welcome back to The Explainer. Now, if you follow AI, you know it's always a whirlwind. But the week of May 11th, 2026, wow, that wasn't just another busy news cycle. It was this chaotic, defining week where the industry's messy human realities totally collided with massive financial milestones. We're talking sworn courtroom testimonies, profound shifts in enterprise data, and historic IPOs, all happening at the exact same time. So let's jump right into the analysis and unpack exactly what went down.
To make sense of this incredibly dense week, we're going to break it down into 4 clear chapters. First, the OpenAI courtroom drama, then how Anthropic is taking the lead, after that, the blockbuster Cerebras IPO, and finally, a quick look ahead to Google I/O.
All right, Chapter 1, the OpenAI courtroom drama. Let's look at the timeline for week 3 of the trial, because the bombshells started dropping literally right out of the gate on Monday. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella testified, pretty neutrally, that Elon Musk never actually contacted him with concerns about Microsoft's OpenAI investment. And he confirmed Microsoft recognized about $9.5 billion in revenue through that partnership. Huge numbers, right? But then, Ilya Sutskever took the stand and detailed this wild piece of alternate history. During those 5 crazy days when Sam Altman was fired back in November 2023, the board actually reached out to Anthropic, proposing a merger. Just think about that for a second. Sutskever testified he didn't want it, but the fact that a merger was even proposed by the board of a leading AI lab to its absolutely biggest rival, that is now a matter of sworn public record. And the sheer scale of the internal conflict leading up to that crisis, it's just staggering. Sutskever confirmed on the stand that he spent a full year assembling a 52-page document of evidence against Sam Altman. 52 pages. He testified he'd been considering removing Altman as CEO for at least 12 months before the actual vote even happened. So, this wasn't just some sudden weekend decision. This was a heavily documented, long-simmering dispute at the absolute highest levels of the company. Which brings us to Tuesday, when Sam Altman faced cross-examination. Now, Altman's central defense regarding the shift to a for-profit structure was basically that he didn't steal a charity. Instead, he argued Elon Musk essentially abandoned it by pulling funding. Altman testified the shift was literally the only viable path to compete. But here's the moment that stood out. When pressed directly by Musk's attorney on whether he misled business partners, Altman didn't just issue your standard corporate denial. He looked directly at the jury and stated, "I believe I am an honest and trustworthy business person." It was a really profound statement of self-belief, delivered at a completely pivotal moment in the trial. Then, by Thursday's closing arguments, Musk's team was hammering hard on mission betrayal and personal enrichment. But OpenAI's attorney, Sarah Eddy, delivered this incredibly striking rebuttal. She pointed out the complete lack of corroborating witnesses for Musk's claims, stating to the court, even the people who work for him, even the mother of his children, can't back his story. Wow, it really shows just how intensely personal this trial got. And with that final note, the first phase rested, and the 9-person advisory jury took the case. Okay, moving on to Chapter 2, Anthropic takes the lead. Because while all that courtroom drama was unfolding, the business world just kept moving. Have you seen the Ramp AI Index? It tracks actual corporate credit card spending across more than 50,000 U.S. businesses. So this isn't some synthetic benchmark. We're talking about real dollars here, and the data confirms it. Anthropic has officially passed OpenAI in enterprise adoption. Claude is now capturing 34.4% of enterprise spend, compared to ChatGPT's 32.3%. Anthropic has basically quadrupled its business adoption over the past year. The big takeaway here for us? Trust and security are for sure trumping first-mover advantage in the corporate world right now. To give you a visceral, real-world example of what that adoption actually looks like on the ground, Uber's CTO just disclosed that they burned through their entire 2026 AI budget in just the first 4 months of the year. Why? Because of tools like Claude Code and Cursor. A staggering 70% of Uber's committed code is now coming from AI. If you were wondering how fast these tools are becoming mandatory infrastructure, well, there's your answer. It is a massive warning sign for any company out there that isn't rapidly adapting to this shift. It's honestly like watching a real-time chess match. On the exact same day those closing arguments wrapped up in the trial, Anthropic announced a massive strategic alliance with PwC. This brings Claude to 364,000 professionals across 136 countries, meant to compress tasks, like insurance underwriting, from weeks down into days. So what was OpenAI's countermove? Immediate, aggressive deployment. They shipped mobile access to Codex, which already has 4 million weekly users, and they rolled out HIPAA-compliant local deployment to clear a path right into the healthcare sector. Altman even offered 2 free months of Codex to companies willing to switch. That is a direct swing at Anthropic's recent pricing.
All right, Chapter 3, the blockbuster Cerebras IPO.
Pivoting away from software for a minute, we just hit the biggest US tech IPO since Uber, way back in 2019. If you want to understand Wall Street's appetite for AI hardware right now, just look at this first-week trading journey. Cerebras priced at $185, but by the time the bell actually rang to open trading, it had rocketed to $350. It peaked at $386 and finally closed the week at $311. That is a 68% jump from its initial pricing. It absolutely proves the market is just starved for pure-play AI hardware. I really want to let this number sink in for a moment. $95 billion? That is the market capitalization Cerebras achieved by the end of its very first week. They raised $5.55 billion in the offering alone. To put that into perspective, this staggering financial scale shows that the market is more than ready to price the physical hardware build-out of the AI boom at an astronomical premium. So what exactly justifies a $95 billion valuation? Well, it's the wafer-scale Engine 3. This chip is literally 58 times larger than a standard leading GPU, and it delivers inference speeds up to 15 times faster. But here's a fascinating little twist that connects right back to our courtroom drama. OpenAI's Greg Brockman actually holds a personal stake in Cerebras. It's a stark reminder of just how small and deeply interconnected the capital, the hardware, and the key players in this valley really are.
Finally, Chapter 4, looking ahead to Google I/O.
Because you know the industry doesn't pause to let anyone catch their breath. Google I/O kicks off Tuesday, and sources are pointing to a new Gemini model in the GPT 5.5 class. Though, to be fair, they are still chasing Anthropic's Mythos model, which currently sets the benchmark. But add unexpected hardware drops like Google Books, Android XR smart glasses, and a brand new Aluminum OS, and you have Google fighting aggressively to remind the whole world they're still a foundational pillar of this industry, not just some legacy giant.
Which brings us to the ultimate question we are left with after a week like this. With the trial resting in the hands of a jury, the enterprise market shifting toward Anthropic, billions and billions pouring into hardware like Cerebras, and Google looming just days away, who really controls the future of AI? Is it the courts, the enterprise developers, the hardware manufacturers, or the legacy tech giants? It's a high-stakes narrative that is rewriting the rules of technology right before our eyes. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll see you next time.